So, hey, hello? Hello? Can everybody hear me? I've never used one of these before. Hello? Hello? Okay. I guess I'll have to talk about this. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Joe from Wichita, Kansas, and Home on the Range is the state national anthem of Wichita, Kansas.
We knew that.
We have sunflowers. I should have opted. That's okay. It'll be fine.
We can get you switched out if you want.
Why don't you put it up here a little higher?
Should I feel a little high? Okay.
Up to your beard.
You Rotary guys. Okay, here we go. This has been a really strange morning to coming here to speak to you. When Scott originally contacted me, he said, "Hey, would you like to come and talk to Rotary?" And I said, "Sure, I'll come and talk to Rotary." I don't know what I'm going to talk about. So a couple of weeks ago, I get an email from Bill Sauber, and he says, "What are you going to talk about at Rotary?" I said, "You know, I don't really know what I'm going to talk about at Rotary. I'm going to call Scott and talk to Scott." Is this the way it always works?
Yeah, that'd be yeah.
I feel right at home now. He just picked my pocket. I don't have any pants on. Film at 11. So Scott says, "Well, I thought maybe you want to talk about your book because I just actually wrote a book. It's actually a partial book and it needs a lot of work. It's not titled "A Life in the Saddle." That is the title of my presentation that I'm going to try to get through today without stumbling too much. We're fortunate to have a lot of adventurers here. Bill Sauber, Brian, and Rod, right? See, it's like a steel trap. So this is my book, and there will be a test later on. There will also be a slide later on that will show the cover of this. But I want to go back a little bit in time. I actually started my long career of bicycle touring back in 1984. And this is,
It always works like that too.
it always works like this. And this, help Scott. And this is me back when I was about 30 years old. Anyway, as soon as we get this going. Okay, the audio-visual portion of this thing is ended. So, I've done it. I'll keep talking. So, way back when I got out of the Air Force in 1982, a lot of people weren't even born yet, for sure. I turned to the bicycle partially out of poverty, but partially because my roommate at the time got a job at a bike shop and we were getting bike parts really cheap. So I didn't have to pay for insurance or gasoline and all that stuff. And I was basically a 21-year-old kid with nothing else to do, so I spent a lot of time on a bicycle. My friend did get a job at a bike shop, and we started doing long-distance bike tours. And the first one that we did was a several-day tour that went from, it's Tim. That's Tim. That's me. Back in, that's in 1990. We were riding from Patagonia, Arizona to, where the hell were we riding to? We were riding from Patagonia to Tombstone. This was at a point in my life when I thought that I was going to spend my life as a bicycle tramp and never get a job and just ride my bicycle everywhere. Notice all the groovy accoutrement of bicycle tourists. There's the beer up there, and there's the 1970s athletic socks. This was towards the end of there was a big bicycle revolution in 1976. there was an organization known as Bike Centennial, and they mapped out the first cross-country bike route in 1976 and took about 40 people coast to coast on a bike tour to celebrate the 200th anniversary of our nation's founding. In the meantime, they've created 3 cross-country routes, a central route, a northern route, and a southern tier route, and there are about 5 north to south routes that they've created, plus a bunch up in Montana. So I fully got involved in that through my friend Tim. He was my Air Force buddy. We don't talk about politics anymore because he's worked for the aerospace industry for about 30 years and listens to Michael Savage, and we don't have a whole lot in common. We stopped talking about politics after the Bush administration. But that was Tim. That was what we were going to do with the rest of our lives until he got involved in the aerospace industry. But he is the person who is singly responsible for me getting into bicycles and bicycle touring and having to work until the day I die because I never saved money for retirement. This is our first trip. This is in 1984. We rode from Mesa, Arizona to the Grand Canyon and back for our spring break. That's me over there. These are 1980s photos that have been either scanned or photographed with an iPhone. It's a really great trip. That's Tim's son, who is now about this tall, and he's a very successful person now. All of my friends were successful, except for me. That is what it looks like the day after all of your tents are blown down because a storm blows through. This is near Sedona, Arizona. We were camped down by a river on some people's property, and they actually came out the next morning to see if we were okay and brought us coffee and everything. You know how it is, the kindness of strangers who are camping on their property. It's really bad out there. So they come down in the morning and say, "Oh, are you guys sure this is what you want to do?" So that was my friend Marvin Christie. He actually did the Race Across America 3 times. Brian did the Race Across America in a team a few years ago, and I actually got to do a story about it. So he's crazy. Have you and Mandy done that, the next 50 mile yet, or are you coming up on that? December? Yeah. So that was Marvin. We used to go out and ride bicycles. He was training for the Race Across America, which is a 4 or 5 day race from Lompoc to Boston or some godforsaken place like that. So he used to come by my place and we'd jump on the bicycles and go out and ride 100 miles for no apparent reason whatsoever. But it was hard to find people to do that for him because he was doing it for sponsorship, and I didn't have anything else to do with my life except drink beer and ride bicycles at the time. And that's at the end of a tour. That's what it looks like after you've been on the road for several weeks or a week, sleeping in the rain. But this is my book. The book started out 30 years ago when I decided I wanted to write about bicycle touring. But I never really got around to it until about last January when I took an InDesign class at San Jose Junior College. So I finally figured out that I was going to write my book, and this is the cover of my book. And I look at it now, and it looks like an InDesign project to me, and it is a proof. There's a reason that you get a copy of your book and then read it and look at it and see what it's going to look like when it's done, because you find all the little typos and all the misspellings and all the things that you thought you caught when you first wrote the book. So anyway, I'm going to bore you with a little bit of it. This book, it's called The Long Ride Home Part 1, but it's actually Part 2. Part 1 is still on the drawing board, and Part 3 is still on the drawing board. And hopefully by about May of next year, it's all going to be finished. But this part came, this is specific about two people that I met on the road who were riding from San Francisco to back to North Carolina. They were North Carolina, they were Tar Heels. They were Tar Heels. I see there are North Carolina fans around here. So they were a really interesting couple of guys. And we spent a lot of time in the desert, running around in the desert together. They were, their trip was getting ready to fall apart on them when they met me. And I just happened to be out in the desert with nothing else to do, so we hooked up for a few days and basically took the desert by storm. Let me see. That's me. That's the first part of the trip when I was riding down the coast. I met the boys near Teofulio Summit, which is just west of the Anza Borrego Desert before you drop down into the desert. But there's a whole part of the story that hasn't been written yet going down the coast, which is where I really, until you spend months and months doing something like that, you know, you can go out and take those nice little trips overnight, or, oh, hey, I'm gonna go camping in Napa or some godforsaken place like that. And, but once you spend months and months doing this, it really, by necessity, you have to evolve into it. I was actually looking over Bill's presentation from his Appalachian Trail trip, and I caught a lot of things that I didn't see when you first gave the presentation, like all the muddy tracks that you had to go through, carrying all that crap, and actually it happens a lot of bicycles too. There are more bicycle stories coming, hopefully, after this book gets written, where you don't just get on the road and ride down the street. There are times when you don't know how you're going to go another mile. You don't know where you're going to get your water, and that happens a lot out in the desert. If you don't plan for it, well, you end up being eaten by vultures if you're lucky, I suppose. But this is the part of the trip that I wrote about. You'll see, you can't see Escondido over here because for some reason Scott's computer is doing funny things. And there's Flagstaff up there. So this part of the trip with the gentleman I met from North Carolina, we rode down. We actually met up here and then we hooked up in Yuma, right? We're just north of Yuma. This is their proving grounds here. The U.S. military goes out in the desert and blows things up because they don't think that anything lives out there. But I beg to differ with them on that. Those are, that's Paul and Steve. Paul was a real intellectual guy, and he's actually a graphic artist now. That's the wonderful thing about Facebook, is you can find people, you can stalk people that you haven't seen in 30 years, and force them to be your friends, even if you never communicated with them. It's really kind of a wonderful thing. Paul is a graphic artist. He was, there's one of the chapters, let me see, let me dig through my book here. The name of the first chapter is Desert Trekking with Les and Paco. And he was going to do a comic novel called Broken Spokes. I know it's written down here somewhere. Broken Spokes, The Adventures of Paco Ray-Ban and Les the Magic Zebra, and their bicycle trip across the country. He never got around to it, so I'm really shocked that I wrote the book before he did. And Steve ended up being a lawyer down in San Francisco, and we're actually planning on doing a 30th anniversary get-together in a couple of years. But I met them right outside of Teofulio Summit. The great pictures that you get when you're on the road by yourself. There's either a picture of your bicycle sitting somewhere, or there are pictures of signs with nothing in the background. And you know, this was 1989 when I did this trip, so I didn't know anything about taking photos. All I knew about taking photos is that they're really expensive. They were back in the 80s and 90s, but now everything's so cheap because you know, it's all megabytes, megapixels, and if if I would have had electronic technology back then, I probably could have traveled another 6 months or a year. I spent a lot of money on photos, and most of them look like that. So anyway, the high point of our trip through the desert was in Quartzsite, Arizona, and I'm actually halfway tempted to read a little passage from my book, just to, hopefully I won't read the parts that are really poorly written, because sometimes they are. But this is the story of me and Paul and Steve. And our day in Quartzsite. I'm just going to read a little bit of this. The boys and I cruised into the shimmering trailer park community of Quartzsite, a sprawling and dusty desert town of about 2,000 hardy year-round souls. In the winter months, the population swelled to about 20,000 people. The town was composed of trailer parks, which accommodated winter travelers. Natives called them snowbirds because they flew in from points north to avoid lousy winter weather, or silver eagles because of the color of the hair on their retired heads. I wrote some of this when I was really young. But it was early June and the temperatures were skyrocketing, so we had most of the towns to ourselves. We cruised around town to find a place to get supplies and found a local market where we bought food and, of course, some beer. We were on vacation after all, and what better way to cement a budding friendship than with alcohol? As we were loading supplies onto our bikes, we paused for a moment to watch a man walking down the road with a bag of onions on his back. Really. It would have seemed strange anywhere else in the world, but would prove perfectly natural there in Quartzsite. Steve quickly caught on to the humorous possibilities and bent double like he was under the weight of a heavy object. I walked all the way across Arizona with this bag of onions on my back. Paul and I laughed at his clever humor. We'd been on the road a long time. We checked out a few drab trailer parks before Paul finally settled on Rocket H. He liked it because he was able to talk the price down to $8 for all three of us. Steve and I just liked the name and the fact that it had food. We pulled the gears off our bicycles and set about the hopeless task of getting our tent stakes into the hard clay of Quartzsite. There were ants everywhere, and a couple of trailer residents of the Rocket H were in the middle of a huge domestic disturbance. "Get out! Get out!" the female voice screamed. She proceeded to throw the man's sparse belongings out the front door of the trailer and onto the very same hard-packed ground that we were trying to get our tent stakes into. He didn't have much, a few worn t-shirts and faded pair of Wranglers, so it didn't take very long to throw them out. We did our best to ignore the ruckus and figure out how we were going to get our tents out. After several expletive-laced exchanges between the loving couple, there was a loud crash. The man, who we later found out was named John, stormed past us with his meager belongings on his back. He was tall and gaunt and looked like he'd lived the life of a dedicated alcoholic. "Hey, Sharon wants you," he said to me as he walked by. His voice sounded like he'd smoked a few too many cigarettes. "She wants you. You can go over there right now and have her if you want." I looked over at Sharon, who was glaring down at us from the front door of the trailer. She had stringy, bleached blonde hair and a really bad complexion. They made a good couple, really, but she just wasn't my type. "No thanks," I mumbled, slightly embarrassed to have been singled out for the privilege of having Sharon. "No, really, she wants all of you." On that note, he turned and walked out of the trailer park. Sharon had been watching the proceedings from the perch at the front door of the trailer. We avoided looking at her and then let out a communal groan when she started to walk toward us. Maybe she really did want us. We tried to look busy worrying over the tents that we had no hope of ever getting out. "You saw that, didn't you?" she demanded as she stormed over to us. I was closest to her, so she came straight over to me, of course. "You saw that, didn't you? He hit me. You'll tell the cops when they get here, won't you?" Her voice reminded me of the screech of vultures fighting over the remnants of rotting roadkill. I looked up as if just noticing her, and then looked around for some support from the boys. None was forthcoming, so I had to weather the storm of Sharon's wrath alone. "No, I didn't see anything," I said. "We were just trying to set up our tents, ma'am." I hoped that being polite would discourage her. Thankfully, she turned on the boys. "You saw that, didn't you? You saw him hit me, didn't you? You'll tell the cops, won't you?" Steve mumbled something about being way over there and not having a clear view of what happened, and Paul had the sense to wander away and check out the pool. The cops are going to be here anytime, and I want you to tell them what you saw, okay? Sharon then attempted to strike up a conversation with us. Where are you guys coming from? We mumbled stock answers about cycling down the coast, being as vague as possible in hopes of Sharon going away. Wow, that's really cool. I've always wanted to do something like that, but I keep getting stuck here in quartzite with that asshole. She pointed in the general direction of the departed John. Hey, I really appreciate you guys talking to the cops for me, okay? Sharon wanted somebody to be on her side. We happened to be there, so we were elected. That's a little bit of Oh, I was just getting more.
I know you would.
I could tell you would. Okay.
That was fascinating. Thank you very much. And good luck.
Wait a minute, one more picture. That was me by literally quartzite. Yeah, so it really did happen. I have pictures of you. I fit the pictures. Thank you very much.
Good work, good work. You must draw. Pile it up. What do you got, Bill?
Oh, I was on. Is it in print yet? It's, you know, no, it's not going to be in print. This is really it needs a rewrite. And probably about 40 more pages. So hopefully by May I can come back and Scott won't have his beard because you guys are going to get 13
Yeah.
to sign up. And I can actually play with that. But this is just the first draft, and it needs a lot of work.
Okay.
I get to draw?
Hold that. Draw will be
Okay.
and read the numbers.
All right.
Excited crowd.
All right. Last four. 8.
Yes.
0.
Yes.
2.
Yes. Really?
7.
We won! No! No. I just gave it to you. It had fallen on. It was mine. Rich get richer.
Correct.
Everything's ready. Checked it. Get the money, honey. It's rich.
Okay, we got a door prize here, courtesy of Kurt. And come over here. Oh, it's in there. It's in there. No, that's the one. That's it. Right? But here you go. Thank you, Kurt.
This is a wild.
This is my joke for the day. See, you have these two spiders, and they're making a spider web at the bottom of the slide, and they're waiting for a kid to slide, and they're saying to each other, if we pull this off, we'll eat like kings. But we know that it's... Okay. Diana might have a better joke than that. Good one.
It goes to meetings now.
Not on it?
Okay, yeah, I'm on. Okay, I have a way clean chicken joke.
Uh-oh.
And there was a chicken, and he walked into the library. And the librarian looked at him. He says, "Chicken one." The chicken says, "Book." So she hands him a book. Stuffs it under his wing, and he goes out the door, down the steps. And she, what's with this chicken? So the chicken's back pretty soon, and he drops the book on the floor and says, "Buck, buck." So she hands him 2 books. Out the door, the chicken goes again, and in a little while, the chicken comes back and drops the 2 books. And third time he says, "Buck, buck, buck." Hands him 3 books and stuffs them under the chicken's wing. And the chicken goes out the door and she says, "What's with this chicken? I'm going to follow and find out what happens." So she follows the chicken. The chicken goes down to the pond and drops the 3 books there. And a frog comes out of the pond and says, "Read it? Read it? Read it?"
Thanks, guys. Happy trails.
Trey.